We're live, pal.
Yes, we are. Those are the victory horns, and they sound for the three fighters who have championship belts in this big graphic.
It's weird.
Liz Carmouche, Chris Cyborg, Nurmagomedov, and also, it doesn't sound for Grant Dawson. Those victory horns, when they were sounding, they sound for Bobby Green, Shaheen Al-Shatti. They sound for Bobby freaking Green, who just melts, absolutely lamps Grant Dawson in the main event of UFC Vegas 80. I almost woke my whole family up when that happened because that was just freaking incredible. But welcome to the show, everybody. We're recapping UFC Vegas 80. We're recapping Bellator 300, which just wrapped up. It wrapped up with Nurmagomedov barely breaking a sweat against Primus. Absolutely dominant performance. Chris Cyborg just absolutely runs over Kat Zingano for a quick finish. And then Liz Carmouche and Ilima-Lei Macfarlane, they did a thing. They got in a cage and threw punches and kicks at each other. And unfortunately, it ended in a super sad way because Ilima-Lei Macfarlane, badly injured knee, ended pretty bad. But Liz Carmouche could have ended that fight at any point. So I guess, Shaheen, the real question is, we talked about this heading in. What's the more intriguing event? If you could only watch one, what would you pick? Seemed like Bellator 300, Nurmagomedov was the must-see pick of the weekend. Now that it's all played out, Shaheen, do you feel like you were correct, that you picked the right card, the right fight, the right moment? Who won the weekend, Shaheen? Was it Bellator in their historic event, or was it the UFC in the world's most famous Apex?
My internet connection is all kinds of breaking up right now, so I didn't hear the end of your question, but I'm going to just go with it. I mean, look, let's be all honest here with each other, right? Like, we all picked Bellator. We all thought Bellator was the better main card. On paper, it was.
What in the world?
What is going on? What is going on right now?
Bear with us, guys. Casey's on site and Jose's doing all of the producing.
You're doing great. You're doing a great job, I promise.
You're crushing it, Jose. You're crushing
Killing
it.
it.
I don't even remember. Bellator, I mean, on paper, Bellator was the better main card, right? It's objectively like the more meaningful card, certainly. Our good friend Casey on site put it excellently, where, you know, we just watched a potentially top 5, top 3 lightweight in the world make easy work of a fairly decent opponent. And we also watched one of the greatest women fighters of all time just melt someone, just straight up murder someone almost in the cage there with absolute ease. So like, that's the more meaningful card, surely, but come on, I mean, the more entertaining of the two was obviously the UFC. I mean, Bobby Green, like, no one saw this coming. We were talking about this on the show, and not really any of us gave him much of a chance to pull off what he just did. It's just incredible to me what he's sort of been able to do in this final career chapter of his. This is whatever this late run of his is, right? Like, he is 37 years old in a lightweight division that is historically incredibly unkind to men his age. And he has put together one of the best sort of UFC stretches that he's maybe ever had. Like, you look at everything that was stacked against him, right? Comes into this, dude, he already had 29 professional fights when Grant Dawson made his MMA debut. Like Bobby Green was already a grizzled veteran in the UFC when Grant Dawson started cage fighting. He out here 4-1 underdog, 37 years old against the 29-year-old. No one gave him much of a shot, and it lasts 33 seconds. Like, that's like, if not the best win of his career, it's easily one of the best wins of his career. And it probably is actually the best win of Bobby Green's entire UFC career. And for him to be able to pull that off at age 37, doing it the way they did, where really, again, no one saw it coming. Grant Dawson coming in, had 9 fights in the UFC, had not tasted defeat in the UFC, and he tasted it that way for the first time. All the power to the OG, man. Like, that, it is rare we see this. You look at like almost like a mini Masvidal type of run that Green's on, right? Like, it's definitely not what Jorge Masvidal did late in his career, but it is sort of like this weird, I don't even know if culmination is the right word, but he is more popular now than he ever has. And he's finding more success in a fan base than he ever has before. So all the credit to him, man. That man's lasted. He's done it. And he did it tonight. It was incredible to watch.
I'm glad you mentioned the Masvidal thing, because I know Daniel Cormier talked about it at the end of the broadcast, and Jed and I have been talking about this for a while. Like, we do the Q&A episodes of BTL. A lot of times we get like, who's the next sort of Masvidal guy that could just sort of be a veteran. We all want like kind of good things for this person, and maybe they can just have a big moment where it's like playing a round of golf. You can just stink on the golf course, but there's something someone told me a long time ago. I think it was my dad, and said you can change a shitty round of golf into a really good round in 3 shots. Bobby Green can become a star in 3 fights. Like, it's always, I feel like it's been there for like 3 years since the pandemic started. We're waiting for Bobby Green to just go on this like 3-fight run and just get to that next level. And I think the UFC is like really ready for it. And then he goes out and just knocks out a guy who hasn't lost in forever. And just is a huge underdog and gets it done. So, Shaheen, I know you tweeted out because Renato Moicano, in his infinite wisdom, just
jumped
went
on that.
bananas on social media. just went bananas on social media. If you are the matchmakers, is this the fight you're making? Are you doing Bobby Green versus Renato Moicano, or are you doing something different?
I mean, I like it. Moicano has sold me on it. Bobby Green's probably going to be ranked above Moicano once this comes out on Monday, when it comes to the UFC rankings, at least, which we all know those are not the most important rankings. But for their purposes, that's certainly important. Grant Dawson was number 10. I wouldn't be surprised Bobby Green jumps in at number 10. Moicano's at number 13 right now. That being said, I like that fight. Moicano's on a nice little run. He has a little bit of momentum too, with the way he's been able to promote himself, doing all sort of the outside of the cage things, but also the in-cage promos. I don't know. I didn't think about that fight until Moicano proposed it, but I like it. What about you, Mike Heck? You are the matchmaker extraordinaire. We really want to hear from you in this.
I'm not going to give my answer, but I can assure you, I think when I say this, you'll probably figure out who it is. It's not going to be Renato Moicano. It will not be him. It will be somebody ranked higher than Renato Moicano, because I really think the UFC is going to try to push this man. I think they're going to push him. I think they're going to try to make a big move here and see if Bobby Green can come through again against a really good grappler. And I think there's really only one name that kind of stands out that could possibly be available for this fight before the year is over. And it starts with an M and it ends with the Touche Gamrot, as long as he's not the actual backup for the title fight and is not tagged in October in Abu Dhabi. Dude, Bobby Green versus Mateusz Gamrot at UFC 296. On top of that, featured prelim, ESPN. Let's go. Let's do that. I'm totally down for that. Yes, either the shot clock just went off or Jose completely agrees with me.
I can't tell if that's Jose agreeing or disagreeing.
No, that's Jose agreeing. Our internet decided to cut off the first 3 seconds of a 4-second air horn, so you got the tail end of an air horn. We persevere.
Yes, that was incredible. It sounded so much better with just like the one horn. It was awesome. Well done. Absolutely well done. Yeah, but great performance for Bobby Green. Where Grant Dawson goes from here, I don't really know. It's tough to lose these fights in these spots, especially in this division. It's almost, I'm not going to say it's impossible to come back from, but it's really, really tough, especially with some of these other guys coming up. So massive win for Bobby Green. Tough night for Grant Dawson in his first UFC main event. Good night to be Joe Pyfer, Shaheen Al-Shatti. He looked real good. Pretty fun main card. Alexander Hernandez, Bill Algeo kicked off the main card with a banger. Super fun fight. And at that point, we really needed like a super fun fight to happen. And it kicked off in a big way. Joaquin Buckley looking damn good. There's a lot to like about this UFC main card. So who is, outside of obviously Bobby Green, who is your big standout performance? Like, if you had to tell somebody who called you right now, like, tell me what I have to watch on this UFC Vegas 80 card outside of Bobby Green, what are you telling them?
Oh my Lord. I don't know why this internet is so rough right now. This is just great. I mean, man, I've been on the Joe Pyfer train since this man debuted in the UFC, since he was in the Contender Series the second time. I am really starting to become a believer in this man. He fights with a ruthlessness, with a savagery, with a ferocity that is fairly uncommon, right? Like, you watch him go in there, he is trying to end people with every single thing that he does. And there's just an anger behind it. And obviously, if you know his story, like, you can understand where a lot of that anger comes from. But man, I don't know. Like, I don't know that I'm all the way there yet with him all the way. I'm getting damn close. Are you a full believer right now in the Joe Pyfer train, Mike Heck?
I'm probably in the same place you are right now, where I was like, okay, like, I like what I'm seeing. There's potential. I think I've leaped beyond the potential part of the conversation, where I'm like, all right, this guy might really be something. And like when you listen on to the next one tomorrow, I'm giving him a step up, like a really strong one, as you will see. I'm not going to give him like a top 5 dude, but I'm going to give him somebody like I need to know. And even if he loses, like I don't think it's going to hurt him too much because you could just be an exciting finisher and you could do very, very well in that position. But I kind of want to see if he's for real, Shaheen. I kind of want to see if he is the real deal. So I'm ready to see him take a little bit of a leap up in competition. And Abdul Razak Al-Hassan was a dangerous fight, but I think we all kind of expected how that was going to play out. As long as Joe Pyfer could get out of 5 minutes and 30 seconds, he was going to win this fight. Just look at the numbers and look at the science behind Abdul Razak Al-Hassan fights. You get past 5 minutes and 30 seconds, you're probably going to win. That submission was nasty. I can't believe it wasn't stopped with the actual tap. Joe Pyfer's a bad man, Shaheen. It's past potential. It's to the point where I'm like, okay, I kind of need to see how good he is, and I kind of want to see it right now. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I mean, we've seen it historically, right? Like middleweight is a division where you can make strides very, very quickly if you're fighting like this. Like we've seen it time and time again. The guys who sort of get that pump, get that rise real quick because they're just going out there and ending fools. And that's sort of where we're at. I'm with you. Like Joe Pyfer has made it very clear, like I'm not going to fight anybody unless you give me a little bit of a raise, which I understand, and that's the right way to approach this. He said it himself. Like he has that 4-fight deal. 3 of them are up. That's usually when the UFC renegotiates. I would fully anticipate, just having been in this space and seeing how this stuff works, that he is going to get that renegotiation that he's asking for. And part and parcel with that will be a fight that matters, a fight against the top 15 guy, maybe like a periphery guy, 15, 14, 13, right in that middleweight division. And I'm here for it, man. I'm ready to see how high this guy can go. Because again, we've seen it with Alex Pereira. We've seen it with Dricus du Plessis. We've seen it with a lot of the new middleweights coming up. There is room for advancement at 185, and this division makes absolutely no sense right now with Sean Strickland at the top, and who knows who's going to fight Sean Strickland, and who knows where any of these dudes really sit at this point. It is a brand new division, completely reset with that most recent result we've gotten. So I'm here for it, man. I'm excited with the future of Joe Pyfer and who he could be, because he continues to just show out every chance he gets.
I remember, I don't know if it was like 2021 or 2022, Dana White was asked at the beginning of the year, like what his favorite division in the sport was, like the one he was looking forward to seeing how it was going to play out over the next couple of years. And he said middleweight, and people just killed him for it. And it turns out he was right. Like we still, on top of everything that has happened with like Pereira and Izzy and freaking Sean Strickland is the middleweight champion. And now we got Khamzat Chimaev and Paulo Costa. We got Joe Pyfer. We got freaking Bo Nickel on the come up. I mean, Jesus Christ, man. So many. Middleweight is incredibly fun right now. It's incredibly fun. Paul Craig's a freaking middleweight right now who's just absolute bananas. Getting ready to fight Brendan Allen, who's on a nice streak. Like middleweight is super duper fun right now. So Joe Pyfer, a nice little addition. Very intrigued to see where he goes from here. We'll talk probably more about the UFC when we get some fan questions. But Shaheen, let's talk about Bellator 300. We slogged through the prelims. Kind of a tough hang. Leah McCourt, nice finish. And apparently she is going to get herself a title fight with Chris Cyborg for her finish of Sarah McMahon. We start with
ostensibly,
Liz Carmouche.
assuming Bellator exists.
Well, see, they're smart. They're all saying, let's do it in Japan because it doesn't have to be a Bellator card. It could just be a Rising card with a Bellator title on the line. It's all real. It's however they want to do it. Yeah. We got Carmouche versus Lima Lay McFarlane. I think we had an idea of how that fight was going to be. It was probably a lot worse than it was. I mean, the referee had to give 2 warnings about timidity between the second round and going into the third round. Never a good thing. And then in round 4, he's yelling at them, like, do more stuff, please. Not a good sign. And then obviously Chris Cyborg and Kat Zingano, and then Usman Nurmagomedov versus Bren Primus. And Shaheen, I got to tell you, one thing that is just annoying me about social media these days.
Do it, Mike Heck.
People just think that Bellator sucks and that it doesn't exist and that nothing matters. The amount of conversations I was having about people just discrediting Usman Nurmagomedov as a prospect is incredible. Like, how could you? Well, he's not Khamzat Chimaev. He's not Shavkat Rakhmonov. No shit. He's Usman Nurmagomedov. He can only fight who he's supposed to fight, and he's just melting fools. He's not even breaking a sweat. He's hasn't even been like touched. He hasn't been in trouble at all in any of these fights. He can't control who he fights. He just destroys all of them. He killed Benson Henderson, who was on like a nice little run before that fight. Brent Primus is a tough dude.
He submitted Benson Henderson. No one submits Benson Henderson, man. That's not a thing that happens in the world.
This guy is one of the 7 or 8 best prospects in the sport. At worst. At worst. And if you want to throw, I understand the Hamzat, and there's a lot of guys under 30 who, like, you don't even think are under 30 because they've been fighting for so long that are still under 30, like Sean O'Malley and Brandon Moreno and Hamzat and Shavkat. Like, there's some killers under 30. But to say Usman Nurmagomedov is not in this conversation at all is like, maybe he is like, he might actually be the best guy. We don't know for sure. But to just leave him out of the conversation because he's in Bellator is ridiculous to me, dude. It's ridiculous.
I mean, it's absurd. It's absurd, especially when you like look at the track record of guys coming over from Bellator to the UFC, right? Like, we've seen a lot of success stories of people come from Bellator to the UFC, people come from other promotions to the UFC. And I remember, I'm old enough to remember when people were doing this about Strikeforce and saying Strikeforce was some inferior brand with inferior fighters. And then all of the Strikeforce fighters came to the UFC and a lot of them won titles, especially a lot of the main ones. WEC, same thing. A lot of the WEC guys come over to the UFC. They're overrated. No one cares, whatever. And then they end up winning titles and putting on all these highlights. Like, we have seen this happen time and time again. People don't learn their lesson in this sport. That's just sort of the reality of it. I'm not going to be shocked if Bellator ends and then a lot of the Bellator fighters come over and are very competitive, whether it's a Johnny Eblen or an Usman Nurmagomedov or an AJ McKee or whoever you want to throw out there. Because I agree with you, Mike. I mean, Usman to me looked like he was bored tonight. Looked to me like after 2 rounds, he very much was aware that like Brent Primus kind of couldn't do anything to him. So he was just messing around a little bit, almost in the way that like Khabib did with Al Iaquinta that one time, where it was just like, I'm just going to kind of do some stuff here and try some stuff out and ride this out. I don't know. I mean, the first 2 rounds were very impressive to me. And then again, he kind of put it on cruise control, but I feel like that guy might be a top 5 lightweight, might be a top 3 lightweight, depending on what kind of matchups he can get. And he is still so damn young. Like, that is the thing. We have not even begun to scratch the surface of this man's potential. And he's already like an undefeated champion of the 2nd best organization in the world. Like, that's not bad. Like, anybody who's crapping on Usman Nurmagomedov, like I don't actually know what you're doing.
I know Bellator 301 is happening, and I really hope no matter what happens, we do get to see this finale. If Alexander Shabliy wins and beats Patricky Pitbull, which look, I'm not supposed to root for anybody for my intrigue levels. I kind of need Shabliy to win because I need to see if Usman does that to Alexander Shabliy. Like, enough is enough. You can't deny this man anymore because Shabliy is ridiculously good. He could be a top 15 lightweight in the UFC, Shabliy. Like, he's that good. Like, he is a solid hand. And if Usman just goes out there and just runs him over for either 25 minutes or finishes this man without a struggle, like, how could you deny this man anymore? How can you deny this man in a conversation? That's better than most wins of any of the other guys you mentioned right there. So I need to see it. And look, if Patricky Pitbull wins, I kind of hope Usman just says, you know what? Keep your million. I'm going to the UFC. I'll go fight Arman Tsarukyan. I'll go fight Mateusz Gamrot. I'll go fight anybody at 155.
Justin Gaethje, baby. I'm telling you. Usman, God. Justin Gaethje is the fight I'm going to manifest because I want to see it so badly.
And then Conor McGregor like just refuses to fight Michael Chandler, so poor Michael Chandler will have to fight Usman Nurmagomedov in his next fight. Oh my God. Someone brought that up on Twitter. I was like, wow, that's just the worst. So yeah, so that's Bellator 300. I mean, let's go to the peeps. I want to give the peeps some time here. Bellator 300, it was what it was. And here's Jose. Hi, Jose. Doing a great job. Doing a great job.
We do our best.
Yes. Let's take some questions from the peeps.
I've tried. There's been a lot to speak to the comment section. You guys are asking the same question, just worded differently. So I'm trying to pull like anything out of it because it's surprisingly all about how Bobby Green's great. And like you said, a lot of people just not impressed with Usman. like Super Dave Fairtex right here.
Kind of a fail for Usman. So
I mean,
like,
I get
how
it.
is this
Look,
fair?
hold
Like,
on.
Like, it
I mean,
go ahead. Go ahead.
look, I get it. It was a boring fight. Like the last 15 minutes, pretty boring. There no tension at all. You kind of knew exactly where this was going to go. There was no threat level. There was no danger in it at all in any way. Like, I get it. It was a very boring fight. But also one guy just completely dominated. What was the striking total? Like 150 to 23 or something like that? Like, yeah, you know, like he was bored. I don't know. It seemed like he was really bored out there.
The win did nothing for Usman. Thanks for showing up to beat a 40-year-old in a decision. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know what else you want from the guy.
I mean, I get it. But also,
It was a long night.
This is not the guy. Yeah. This
Right.
Is not the guy.
I agree.
Yeah. It was a long night of fights. The UFC was kind of a tough hang for a lot of it. And then we get through that. We get this great moment with Bobby Green. And we're like, now we get to go to Bellator 300 with these 3 title fights. And the 3 title fights just weren't compelling at all. So I get it. I get why there's a sour taste in the mouth. Bobby with full fight camp is a beast. He's taking too many short notice fights. About time he got a chance to shine like that. Yes, Hank Hill. Good performance.
It's a very angry Hank Hill in the picture too.
Super angry. What else we got? It was not at all boring. Usman put on a clinic. It was beautiful to watch. The first 3 rounds were incredibly fun to watch because anything Brent Primus did, Usman kicked him in the liver every single time, no matter what Brent did. Brent tried to go for a takedown, he got kicked in the gut. If he tried to go for a punch, he got kicked in the body. If he tried a leg kick, he got kicked in the liver again. Like, Usman was just so good. He knew everything Brent was going to do before Brent did it. It was insane.
The distance management. Distance management was just obscene from pillar to post. Like Brent, you saw at the end, if you heard Brent say to his corner, like he was just so elusive in there. Like I couldn't figure out what to do. He looked like a demoralized man after 10 minutes, and I get it.
Yeah, not only was he elusive, but like when they would show the slow motion replays between rounds, that's when I really started to appreciate what Usman was doing in there. Like he threw that like question mark kick, and then followed it up with a lead right. And then Brent Primus like came in and threw a spinning back fist, and Usman ducked it and then came in with a body shot. It's like Mike said, he saw everything coming from a mile away and just had a counter for everything. It was pretty unbelievable to watch. But in real time, I get it. If you watch the replay in slow motion, I think you would have a lot more appreciation. Anyway, this is an interesting thing that I don't think you guys have touched on.
Are you tapping Al-Hazan? Yeah, jeez Louise.
That was a weird thing, right?
It was very weird because it clearly looked to me like the punch thing to the shoulder was enough to signify a tap to me. And then he's convulsing on the ground. And he's like, "Ooh, Abdul, are you tapping? What do you think?" It was tough, man. It was tough to watch. I was actually like a little nervous for him. I'm like, come on, please.
Once the convulsing started, it was like, all right, what are we about to watch here?
Not even the commentators really knew what was happening, because one of them yelled he's tapping, the other one said he's fighting back. So I have no idea. Like the whole situation, the camera angle was weird too. It was just an odd situation all around.
It was.
I'll tell you what though, if Joe Pyfer had gotten that submission in the first minute, like he almost did,
oh yeah,
I would have lost my mind, man. That dude is impressive, man. I know you can only fight the people you get thrown against, but he is just manhandling people in a way that like you really do not see grown like professional fighters get manhandled in the way that he's doing it.
He's a physical freak. Sticking with the referee questions.
Should Chris Tione be reprimanded for doing nothing about Glenn's blatant glove grabs?
It was pretty bad.
It was pretty bad, but. What have we been saying, Shaheen, on these post-fight shows for like 3 years now?
The lesson.
There's a golden rule.
As always.
Cheat.
You get 3. You get 3 free ones. Use them up.
With Chris, you might get 5, depending on the night. It's nuts, man. He might sometimes he'll just take a point on the first one, and then sometimes he just won't at all for an entire night. He is maybe one of the most inconsistent referees I've ever seen.
Sticking with Mike, I know you're doing on to the next one, and I haven't watched Bobby Green's press conference yet or any of the post-show stuff. But so I don't know if this is true, but apparently Bobby Green brought up Dan Hooker's name.
Sure.
I don't hate that.
That's the first name that popped in my head. It was Moicano, Bobby Green, and Dan Hooker kind of have like this triangle where any of those matchups make sense. And then the other one, like if they want to give him Gamrot or whoever, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, my pick for Gamrot after the Fiziev win was Dan Hooker. That was my pick. And now with everything else going on and Bobby Green beating Grant Dawson, because I didn't think Bobby Green was going to beat Grant Dawson, so I didn't even like have Bobby Green in my mind. But now that he's done it, I think Bobby Green gets Gamrot. Dude, Dan Hooker, Renato Moicano as the other, as the consolation prize. It's a pretty damn good consolation prize right there.
That fight has made sense since they both fought on the last MSG card. They both had big wins. I think Moicano didn't want to go fight in Australia because one of his coaches couldn't get into Australia, so I just don't think they even looked into that. But I thought that fight made sense for a while.
Tonight is just so emblematic of why the sport is so zany and just ridiculous, and no one knows anything, right? Like you have Grant Dawson in here, undefeated 9 UFC fights, coming off a win over like Damir Ismagulov, who I think have incredible respect for. On the pre-fight show, I was like, this is a step down for him.
Yeah, for sure.
Actual like difficulty of opposition. And then on the other side, you have like 37-year-old Bobby Green, who again has been doing this for 15 years and like was mildly struggling with Jared Gordon just like a year ago, earlier this year. I don't even remember when that fight was at this point. And he just starches the kid in like 33 seconds. Like nobody ever knows anything. None of us can ever. It's just if you can find success consistently winning money in this sport, good for you, man. It is a damn difficult sport to predict.
Bobby Green and Hugh Pulley just finishing Grant Dawson in 30 seconds. It's craziness. Grant just mauls everybody else, but Bobby Green and Hugh Pulley, or a trivia question, linked forever, those two gentlemen. Hooker just called up Bobby Green on Twitter like 20 minutes ago.
He said, let's boogie Bobby Green. Moicano can suck it. That's his exact phrasing.
That's tremendous. Yeah, that's tremendous.
I can't find the question again, but there's a lot of people, or 2 or 3 people, just talking about Chris's defensive wrestling. So if you guys have any thoughts about that fight, just how it played out.
I mean, she basically just mushed Kat. Like anytime Kat shot in, she just kind of like, nah, it's not happening. Just pushed, just mushed her in the face like a big sister would do to a little sister. I said in our Slack, like they could have fought that fight 100 times. Kat Zingano would not have won a single round. That was tough to watch very quickly when you realized what this was about to be.
Yeah, I kind of thought like Kat would do different things because it was pretty obvious what she was going to try to do here, and it was pretty obvious what Chris was preparing for. And she didn't have like really any success, but the only success Kat Zingano had in that fight was when she just went cray-cray and just throwing banana punches, just winging them. She was connecting, like Cyborg was just eating them for lunch, but that was like her best chance to win. I think we knew after the first takedown defense from Cyborg. I thought Zingano like tore her knee up immediately. The way she crumbled to the ground and Cyborg's just hitting her, I'm like, oh God, like 2 fights in a row with like bad knee injuries. That was my initial thought, and then somehow Zingano ate a can of spinach like Popeye and popped back up to her feet and then just got wrecked again for another 3.5 minutes. It was a tough night. I think
Chris is obviously just incredibly strong, right? Like that's what that is.
It did look like Kat did look like, I think Sean, you said it on the previous show. She just looked like a blown up bantamweight. Like she's not a featherweight. She's just a bantamweight that didn't cut weight. There was a very clear size advantage in there.
Jose, I want to get your take on something because you tweeted something out about Chris Cyborg because immediately after the win, Liam McCourt comes in and they have a face-off. And I know in our Slack channel, we're like, oh, I guess she's going to fight Liam McCourt. And then other people were like, well, if she fights Liam McCourt before she fights Kayla Harrison or Larissa Pacheco or somebody else, like, it's just ridiculous. And then you tweeted out something to the effect of, it's kind of refreshing to just go to the next person in line, essentially, and just go ahead and fight them, right?
Yeah.
So, and to me, I kind of agree with you on this one, Jose, because like as cool as it would be to see like Kayla and especially the Pacheco fight, I think would be really interesting. For Chris Cyborg, like who gives a crap? Because she's gonna make a whole bunch of money to fight either of these women, whether it's Leah McCourt or Kayla or Larissa Pacheco, and she don't make a dime more fighting either of those two. So just to me, it's just like, yeah, go fight the next person up. We only get you for a pretty short time before she calls it a career. Just give these women a chance, you know? Like, if Leah's ready, just go ahead and do that fight and make your money and do what you want to do. Like, this is prize fighting, and that's what Chris is doing right now. Like, it makes no difference who she fights at this point. Unless she fought, like, Nunes again in the UFC and got pay-per-view points. Like, she's not making an extra dime fighting anybody else.
Yeah. I think, and I've been saying this for a while, like, there's a lot of faults that I see in Bellator in promotion and everything. Like I was telling Mike before we went on air, I don't need to see a whole countdown episode between fights leading up to the fight. If I'm watching Bellator on a Saturday night, you don't need to sell me on the fight. You don't need to give me like a 5-minute video package on Chris Cyborg and Kat Zingano. Like, I get it. I'm here to watch it. But I do like how Bellator champions just kind of say, like, I remember when Gegard won the title, like, everyone's like, oh, rematch Machida, dude, like, go up to light heavyweight, this and that. And he was like, oh, well, Lovato kind of earned it, so I'll probably fight him. Like, and that's just kind of been the Bellator thing for a while. Like, Kat Zingano could have been like, Kayla Harrison, Pacheco, like, I'm going to eat you. And she's like, you know, Leah McCourt earned it. Like, I'll fight her. Liz Carmouche was like, Kana Watanabe, like, she's earned it. I want to fight her. Let's do it in Japan. Like, I want to see the big money fights. I want to see Cyborg versus Kayla Harrison, but I do like meritocracy, and I do think it is kind of refreshing sometimes when you have champions just be like, next man up, let's go. Like, I think that's why Max Holloway got really popular, because like he could have gone up to fight 155 like 2 fights into his featherweight reign, but he's just like, Volkanovski, you're on a tear, you just beat Jose Aldo, I'll fight you, lost, got the rematch again. And to me, I do like champions like that. They're just like, next man up, let's go. But I see both sides, but it was refreshing to hear multiple champions say, like, this person earned it, I'll fight them.
Yeah, I mean, we say it all the time. Like, the hardest thing to do in the sport is not to become a 2-division champion. It's not to do all these multi-weight division things. It's to defend that title over and over and over and over again until you're pushing that number into the stratosphere, until you have Anderson Silva level title defenses, DJ level title defenses. Like, that is the single most difficult thing to do in MMA. That being said, I do agree that, you know, I kind of have no interest in seeing Chris Cyborg just smash random people. Like, I actually want to see her be in a competitive fight, and I think there's maybe one competitive fight for her in the entire sport, if not 2. And I would like to see one of those 2, but I don't think we're going to get it.
Yeah.
About it.
Yes. Question from friend of the site. This is just a question in general. Like to hear your thoughts.
Wow. Jeez, man.
Is Bellator 300 the most lifeless major show in MMA history?
That's a bold statement.
It's bold, but I mean, I think it's kind of a fair question, though. Is it not?
I mean, it's been asked. I mean, the fact that it's being asked is telling.
Do you guys remember what Bellator 200 was?
Do you remember what Bellator... Sean, I know you remember what Bellator 100 was, because me and you were at that fight.
I do remember, and it was they made no effort to celebrate that.
Jordan Rebney had no interest in being like, and say, he was just like, another day at the office. I'm like, oh, make it semi special.
What was Bellator 200? Wasn't it like a rando kind of a card, or was it
the legendary Rafael Carvalho?
Yes,
defending his title. Although, to be fair, he was defending against Gegard.
Yeah, Gegard. So that was like Pete Gegard. Yeah,
that was kind of the big coronation for Gegard.
Wasn't that in London, too? It wasn't even in, like, San Jose, San Diego area.
Good memory. It was in London. Michael Page was on that.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Amir Al-Bazi on the undercard. Look at that.
Huh.
Wow.
Huh.
Interesting. That's pretty, this is a tough one. I can tell you the UFC 300. Well, I don't think we'll have the same feeling about UFC 300 that we had coming out of this one.
Yeah, who was the Bellator 100 was at Grand Canyon University, right, Sean?
Yeah, it was.
Oh my god!
It wasn't even like in a major arena. It was in like a college.
It was in like the 5th biggest arena in just Phoenix. Not even. It was very bizarre. Anyway, I digress. It's a fair question. I just don't know the answer.
fair
You
question.
will put some respect on Bellator 100, one of the biggest statistical upsets of all time.
Oh
happened
yeah,
that night.
for sure. It was it LaRue Burley beat
Yep.
Bubba Jenkins. Wasn't War Machine on that
Jenkins,
fight
baby.
card too? Oh man, what a time.
He very much was. That was when they were trying to make War Machine a thing.
What a time in MMA anyway. I don't know if you guys were watching like the early prelims of the UFC, but did you guys have any thoughts on the decision between Murata and Vanessa?
I'll get to this in a moment, but let me just say the fact that Big Tuna was not on Bellator 300 is a travesty.
Honestly,
this guy was so important to the growth
right.
between 200 and 300, and then they just sacrificed him to a teammate of Ryan Bader,
who is
Colley.
very good.
He is very good, and we're gonna put him on the opening prelim of. I don't even want to talk about Big Tuna. That was a very Bellator move.
One of the
Murata
grossest mismanagements in Bellator history. Come on, man.
This guy was so
Bad
popular.
move.
He was one of my all-time favorite interviews. Was like 3 days after he won that fight. Did Murata get robbed versus Demopoulos? Shaheen, did you watch this fight?
No, I was on other duties at that point, so I missed this one. I'm gonna have to go back and watch it. I heard it was controversial though.
Do you watch it, Jose? Right?
Yeah.
I didn't have a huge issue with it. I really didn't. I was kind of surprised, but I didn't have a huge issue with it. Like, the second round, like Murata was on top, but Demopoulos was just like
That's what I'm saying.
hitting her a million times.
It's the same argument of Tony Ferguson versus Danny Castillo, just someone on top, someone doing damage from the bottom. I remember having it and also working, but I like just from looking up, I thought Murata was winning because she was always in dominant positions, like just optically. But if you like sat and watched, like Vanessa was like as soon as Murata got on top, she just immediately got rubber guard and was just throwing elbows from the bottom, and then she would control. It wasn't the most exciting fight either, but I wouldn't call it robbery. I was surprised, but I don't think it's a robbery. Anyway,
Yeah, all three judges scored it exactly the same.
Yeah.
All three judges gave round two to Demopoulos.
If anything, this might be an actual well-judged fight, just based on damage to optics of control, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it was close. It was close.
Another big story from the UFC card.
No more flag ban.
There's been a lot of comments about this.
Yeah, no more flag ban. And Dana White confirmed during the post-fight presser, no more flag bans. And if you have a problem with the flag, we have to go F ourselves.
I love that. That is the most Dana thing that I've ever seen. That is the silliest way to express what he was trying to express. Of like, I know we banned the flag and then we unbanned it. But if you guys have a problem with us doing any of that, you're sissies. It's like you banned it. No one asked for it to be banned. You banned the flags.
Remember when
it was calling for this? What are we talking about? Who are you calling sissies?
Remember when Edmund walked out with that flag and then a UFC employee got fired for allowing him to walk out with that flag?
Yes.
Unbelievable. Like, this is the same promotion. Unbelievable. I normally don't really care. I am pretty agnostic to a lot of things Dana says, but like I was perplexed by it all. Anyway.
Didn't you ask him originally about the flag?
At UFC, it was UFC London. And I know everyone assumed it was because it was when Nikita Krylov was like from Ukraine or from Russia and had a Ukrainian flag or vice versa. So then he just bans the flag, and then that was a big topic of conversation because they showed the fight lineup and every fighter had a flag except Krylov. It was just blank, and then no one walked out with a flag. So I just asked, and Dana was like, "You know why?" I'm like, "I truly don't. I truly don't." Like, I can assume, but I'd rather you tell me so I don't get suckered into the clickbait narrative thing that keeps getting thrown at everyone. But whatever.
I love it.
We got that today from Joe from Pyfer, did we not?
Yes.
Super funny. I didn't say any of those things. You didn't? It's okay.
Remember when the leech got his...
I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah, fine. One more question then. But do you remember when the leech got his flag physically taken away from him in the octagon? Like, there was that fan video of like he had the flag and the UFC employee ripped it out of his hands.
Oh yeah.
That was really weird. All right, one other final question because there's been 3 or 4.
Hold on, real quick. I love it. I love it so much. UFC bans a thing. UFC unbans a thing.
It's our
UFC
fault.
acts like it was your idea that they banned the thing. Like, what? I just don't get it. I just don't.
Dana's thing now is this is a place where you can say what you want to say and not have it held over your head, which obviously I can guarantee you is not 100% true. Like, there are things that I could say that Dana would get mad about. Anyway, final question, because we've had 3 or 4 and Sean, the internet is going to blow up.
Dawson has to change his walkout song.
What was that?
I know exactly what it was.
Tell us.
The second I heard the guitar riffs, it was the song Hellfire, sung by Count Frollo from the Disney cinematic classic Hunchback from Notre Dame.
That does not surprise me.
Oh.
I didn't hear it at all.
Yeah.
You
remember when Frollo is singing to all the demons coming out because he's so mesmerized by Esmeralda? There's like a lot of like sexual innuendos in it. It's very bizarre. But it was the metal version of it.
I feel like you and Grant Dawson would get along swimmingly, Jose.
I couldn't tell you. I've never interviewed him once in my entire life.
He's into like a lot. I think you guys would have a good time. There's an anything but fighting.
Well,
Grant Dawson's
I need to interview. I've been trying to interview Drew Dober for like a year about Mass Effect because I have so many questions to ask him about Mass Effect, like who he saved in Vermeer. I need to know because that is a very telling thing about a man's character. Anyway, that's probably it.
Okay. Yeah.
I did like Daniel Cormier's reaction to that walkout.
Yeah.
DC was pretty good tonight.
He wasn't bad.
Pretty good tonight.
You know why? Because Paul Felder's pretty good. And Paul Felder's
very
nice
good.
connective tissue. That's why.
And you know who else was there too? John Gooden was there. Nice to hear his voice.
Love me a John Gooden.
Do love me some John Gooden.
Yeah, it was good tandem tonight. I think they did a
Some
very
John
good job.
Gooden in Vegas, too. Not very often.
Love that. Did a great job. Guess where the UFC is next week, everybody? Back at the world's most famous Apex. Sadiq Yusuf versus Enson Barbosa.
Good fight.
Vegas 81. I like that fight. The Go Home show for UFC 294, which goes down in 13 days from right now, everybody. Afternoon MMA, just the way we like it. So thank you all for watching.
It'll be prime time for some of us.
Yes, but I'm excited for that. So for Jose, for Shaheen, thanks for watching. I am Mike Heck. Good night, everybody.